put that on the test. So to review, peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves that branch out from the central nervous system, so from the brains and spinal cord, and connect it to other body parts. And the cranial nerves are considered part of this. Remember, the somatic nervous system is conscious activity, so moving muscles, feeling things like with your skin, and then the autonomic or automatic, really is the easier way to think of it, consists of controlling things that you don't have to think about: digestion, breathing, your heart. So, starting with the peripheral nervous system of the spinal nerves, they come out of the spine, and the cranial nerves come out of the brain. So again, terms that make sense, right? Spinal comes out of the spine, cranial means cranium, the skull, so it makes sense where they come out. And the 12 cranial nerves, we won't have to identify them on the test, but we will need to know what they control. So the 12 pairs of cranial nerves are numbered with Roman numerals, so I, that sort of thing. Go ahead, pause while you put this into your notes. All right, so here's your Roman numerals. Cranial nerve 1 is called the olfactory nerve. We'll get in those second, 2, 3, 4, and you can see where they are. Cranial nerves on both sides of the brain here. But we're not going to make you identify them. It's so close to each other, it's kind of give you a little break on the identifying, since we're going to have so much of that throughout the year. But we will need to know what some of them do. So we'll hit number 1. First cranial nerve is olfactory. Olfactory means sense of smell. So the olfactory tract is in charge of processing senses that come from the nose up through the spinal cord and into the olfactory tract. They connect to olfactory nerves, but in the brain they're called the olfactory tract. But again, olfactory, smell. Optic nerve is the second cranial nerve, and optic means like optics, eyes, so vision. These are what's going to process our sight. Oculomotor, so ocular means eye again, motor means to move. So the oculomotor nerve controls the muscles of the eye that move the eyeball. So if you, without moving your head, if you look left, right, up, or down, it's your oculomotor nerve sending out that signal to do so. Fourth cranial nerve is called the trochlear nerve, and that controls the eyelid. So if you blink or close your eyes right now just on your own, open them, your trochlear nerve is processing that. Trigeminal nerve. This is the main sensory nerve of the face. It has a large branch that goes through that big foramen of the skull, the magnum foramen of the skull. But sensory nerve of the face is what it's in charge of. The abducens controls just one of the eye muscles, the lateral rectus. Won't be on the test since it has a similar function as one of our other nerves. Facial nerve controls facial expressions. So go ahead, smile, frown, furrow your eyebrows, like look mad, and your facial nerve is what's in charge of that. Vestibulocochlear. Cochlea is part of the ear, which we have not learned yet. But this is also called the auditory nerve, so that should make this easier to remember. I will definitely, if this is on the test, it'll say auditory and vestibulocochlear, or just auditory. And hopefully we know auditory is for hearing, and our ears are also for balance. But hearing is the big one we'll remember. Glosso means tongue. Glossopharyngeal, thus, is in charge of the pharynx. That's the pharyngeal part, the tongue, swallowing, speech, anything associated with that area. The vagus nerve. This controls our organs in our thoracic and abdominal cavities, so our hearts, our lungs, our stomach. So a bunch of autonomic or automatic functions are controlled by the vagus nerves of crucial internal organs in that thoracic and abdominal cavity. The accessory nerve supplies the shoulder muscles, so shrug your shoulders up and down, move your whole arm to the left or right, like till it's straight out. That's your accessory nerve. Hypoglossal nerve, and remember that glossal means tongue again, so this is more for how the tongue, not for swallowing, but it's more for how the tongue moves when we talk, that sort of thing. So that's why if it's damaged, it impairs our speech. Some more pictures here that show where these nerves go. Again, we're not going to have to label these for our test. We may do an activity coloring with them just to practice and get an idea, but they will not be on the test. So pause while you write down which nerve does what function. Here's the last part of them. Pause again. There may be some labeling on the test that's extra credit, so here's a kind of an old mnemonic device to remember it. On old Olympus, towering top a Finn and German, Finn meaning like somebody from Finland, viewed a hop. Each of those letters represents the optic nerves in order. Again, not going to be on the test, but if you want to get some extra credit, that might help you remember those. So again, you can pause these if you want to see some, try to identify on a real brain. So you can see, I'll do a few for you. The olfactory bulb, olfactory tract from the olfactory bulb down to the X there, the optic chiasm, which is down here. You can work your way through. Spinal nerves, definitely not on the test. There's 31 total, and they're named which part of the spine they come out of. So you have 8 pair of cervical nerves coming out of the neck region, and they just, starting from the head down, it's C1 through C8. Then we hit the thoracic region, T1 through T12. Lumbar in the lumbar region, sacral region, remember the sacrum, we learned about that, has 5 nerves, and then the tailbone, the coccygeal nerve, is down there. The spinal cord ends at the level between the first and second lumbar vertebrae, and below that we have those two, the sacral and coccygeal, because those are the bones there. Definitely don't need to know the roots on the test, but again, posterior, notice this is toward the back of the person. Anterior would be on the front side. So words we've learned all year still give us a clue of things even if we're not tested on them. So each nerve emerges from the spinal cord at points called roots. So we did show you some there, the dorsal and anterior, ventral. But the place that they come out of the spinal cord is called the root. So here's our spinal cord. Wherever the spinal nerves come out of it is going to be called a root. Go ahead and pause while you put that there. Sorry, I went a little fast. Make sure you pause them. And then the last thing we'll talk about today are plexuses, main portions of spinal nerves that combine to form a complex network. So where a bunch of nerves come together basically is what a plexus is. And the 3 ones you might see on the test are your cervical plexus. Remember, cervical vertebrae is in our neck, so this is where the cervical plexus is, the nerves in the neck. Brachial plexus, what's the brachia part of our body, the brachial? That's our arms, so this would be arms, shoulders, and hands. And then lumbosacral, well, we know the sacral's in the pelvis region, so it's going to be the nerves that come from the lower leg, the legs, lower spine, the butt, so everything kind of waist down. Go ahead and pause and put this in, and then you are done.